So, you know, there's a political dimension to this. But we've been involved in drafting roughly half the laws and defending the laws and suing the government that cracks down and being active in the courts and public opinion. So we're deeply involved. But really is to think about there's 4 elements of marijuana reform. One is medical marijuana, where we've had success in 17 states and some others will follow. The second is in the decriminalization of marijuana, reducing the penalty so that it's just a misdemeanor or an infraction or traffic, like a fine. The third is legalization of marijuana, which is going to be on the ballot, where voters will vote in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon this year. And the fourth is not about changing the laws, it's about changing the way that the police enforce the marijuana laws, especially in those states that have decriminalized. So for example, the state of New York decriminalized marijuana in the 1970s. So you can possess up to an ounce, 28 grams of marijuana in your pocket or in your apartment, and you cannot be arrested, even if a policeman sees it. Initially, the police just stopped arresting people. There were almost no arrests in the 1980s. But beginning in the late 1990s under Mayor Giuliani, what happened was the police decided to start arresting large numbers of people. And the way they would do it was they would stop huge numbers of young, mostly men of color. They would tell them, let me see what's in your pockets. The young men did not know they had the right to tell the policeman, you're not allowed to look in my pocket, or they were scared to tell the policeman that. When they took the marijuana out of their pocket, well, if the marijuana is in their pocket, it's just an infraction for which you can get a ticket. Once it's out of your pocket, it's in quote-unquote public view. It now becomes a misdemeanor for which you can be arrested, taken to the police station, spend up to 48 hours, then you're let go, or you have a criminal record. So this subterfuge, which happens in New York and other cities, became a way. So in the early 1990s, there were only 2,000 or 3,000 people arrested each year for possessing a small bit of marijuana. By the late 1990s and up till very recently, it's between 40 or 50,000 people a year being arrested, overwhelmingly young men of color. So we've led a campaign in New York to change this, to force the police to change their policy, to force the mayor, and we've been mostly successful. The mayor and the police chiefs have finally backed down. The police are beginning to stop doing this, but it's been a really tough campaign to try to change this policy. Not change the law, just change the policy.
Could I also ask Marsha,
yes.
How does this look from your perspective in educational approaches and in your relationship with youth? Are you synchronized with his? Maybe they are, but could you quarrel a bit? So.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking, all right, I'm coming out. Well, there's two different questions. The question of how this is for young, how medical marijuana is for young people. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, I am not only.
It's part of the question.
Okay, I'm in California,
Yes.
but I also live in San Francisco, which is arguably the most liberal city in the country. And so what is happening in terms of young people is that Ethan's point about the risk of getting arrested is really hitting them, in that I think a lot of them feel like not getting a card, and that's what it's called. You say, you have a card, and everybody knows what that means, you have a card. And not getting a card is kind of silly, because you're using it anyway. The kids are using it anyway, and now they avoid getting arrested. Now, in terms of drug education, what I've done a lot of is talk to parents, like your parents. I would have been talking to your parents, or hope to talk to your parents. And I think the parent group now, it's 16 years since 1996, since we passed Prop 215. So it's become kind of part of certainly San Francisco culture and all along the coast there. And so I think that, parents also, this group of parents, remember, who has teenagers now, I don't know how old you are, but,
45.
well, so, but they're a group which even talked about yesterday. Many of them, in fact, in all the workshops I've done, and I've done a lot of them, their big question about the kids and marijuana is, what should I tell my child when they ask me if I have used marijuana? Because so many of them have, they don't know what to say. So marijuana has become a common and open conversation. Medical is just normalized. So it's much easier now than it was. We had an initiative, Prop 19, to legalize marijuana, not just medical, in 2010. In California, and we got almost 47% of the vote in all of California. All of California means not just the West Coast, not just the northern part and the southern part, but inside, and there's some very conservative places. So I think if one of our intentions initially with Prop 215 in 1996 was to get the conversation going and to undemonize marijuana, that seems to me to be apparent. So it's obvious now. And so in terms of parents and kids, it's a different conversation. Now and I'll just finish by saying this, the opposition to normalizing marijuana has also made strong attempts at continuing to scare people, continuing to demonize marijuana. They focus now on high potency. Oh well, high potency does, it exacerbates every problem, they say, and addiction. And now, as we talked about the other night, what about the teenage brain? So it's still, it's not completely accepted, but it's pretty far there. And then the coming out part for me is I've struggled with sleep issues all of my life. And I found that a nice indica, which the article I sent to you, which I still think you should print out and make available to you. It's very short. It helps me get to sleep and enables me maybe not to use pharmaceuticals, although I could get them too. But so that's why I did it, and I have to say, most of my best friends have cards too.